Okay, today we will cover the heart. So just to make it simple, I'm just going to do this introduction very quickly. So the heart has like four chambers, as you know. Okay, so let's say if okay, so this is the right side and this is the left side. Okay, so to make it simple, we know that this right side will be dealing with deoxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood. The left side will be dealing with the oxygenated blood. Okay, and the heart has four chambers. Everyone know. You have two on the top. This is the right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. Okay. So just let me change the color quickly. So let's choose the blue, for example. So this big vein here called superior vena cava, superior vena cava or cava, and you have another big one here called inferior vena cava. Your body sending the deoxygenated blood from the upper half of your body through the superior vena cava to the right atrium, and from the lower half of your body from inferior vena cava to the right atrium. Right atrium will be sending the blood down to the right ventricle through the tricuspid valve, tricuspid tri3. So this valve has three flappers, as you can see here, so called tricuspid valve. So once the deoxygenated blood reach the atrium will send it down to the right ventricle. So right ventricle, we need to send this blood back to the lung. So let's say if this is the lung, for example. Okay. Need to send this blood to the lung to dump the CO2 and carry oxygen. So it's going to send it through the pulmonary. Anything has to do with the lung, we call it pulmonary, right? So it will be the pulmonary artery. And this is the only exception. When you hear the artery carry deoxygenated blood, will be this artery coming out from the right ventricle going to the lung to dump the CO2. Okay, so now we send the deoxygenated blood to the lung, we dump the CO2, so the lung will be sending the blood back, the oxygenated blood back to the heart again. So we'll be sending here to the left atrium. Okay, through this called pulmonary vein, and this is the only exception, that vein will carry oxygenated blood. Okay, anyway, the definition of artery, any vessels carry the blood away from the heart, and definition of vein, that any vessel that bringing the blood back to the heart. Okay, so now the oxygenated blood reach the left atrium here. So left atrium is going to contract and squeeze the blood to send it down to left ventricle through the bicuspid valve. Bicuspid valve. This valve here in right ventricle was tricuspid, has three parts. This has only two parts, bicuspid valve. And now the heart will need to send this oxygenated blood all over the body, so it's going to send it, just let me just change the color quickly. Okay, so it will be sending this through the aorta. So this is a big vessel that carry oxygenated blood to the entire body. Of course, this aorta is going to give like different branches, brachiocephalic, carotid, etc., and go down to reach the the abdominal aorta and renal arteries, etc. Okay, so this will be the main pipe. This is the aorta. Okay, so let's just review the steps quickly. First, if you wanna, physiologically, the heart has two divisions. This division here in the right side, dealing with deoxygenated blood. This division here in the left side, dealing with oxygenated blood. Now your body is sending the deoxygenated blood from the upper half through superior vena cava to the right atrium, and from the lower half of your body through the inferior vena cava to the right atrium. Step number one. Step number two, right atrium will contract or squeeze the blood down to the right ventricle through the tricuspid valve. Step number two, now you have all the deoxygenated blood here. So the heart will send the deoxygenated blood to the lung to dump or to release the CO2 and then carry oxygen. Okay, this happens through pulmonary artery. Then the blood will carry the oxygen and go back to step number three, go back to the left atrium. Left atrium will pump the blood or squeeze the blood down to the left ventricle through the bicuspid valve. Left ventricle is going to squeeze or contract and send the oxygenated blood through the aorta to all over the body. So this is in very simple way, just to explain the steps of the how actually the heart is pumping the blood. Okay, so just to go quickly with this, just to know the different part of the heart. As you can see here, this will be the right ventricle. Okay, this is inferior vena cava, where you send the deoxygenated blood from the lower half of your body. Inferior vena cava. Okay, deoxygenated blood. And this is superior vena cava, carrying the blood with the CO2. Okay, going to the right atrium. Okay, so this will be, that's the right atrium here. These two nice vessels here, this is a right pulmonary vein. This is two vessels here, will be the left pulmonary vein. Okay, those little two branches here called branches of the right pulmonary arteries. This is left pulmonary artery. Okay, this is the apex of the heart. Of course, this is the base of the heart here. Okay, this is the base, this is the apex. This will be the left ventricle, and this is called the auricle of the left atrium. It's like a little, I don't know, little extra piece, like no one actually knows what the function of this one is. But anyway, it's on the top of the left atrium. Okay, and this is the anterior interventricular sulcus, and this is the great cardiac vein, Okay, of course, this is the aortic arch that carry oxygen away from the heart, send it everywhere to your body, as you know. And of course, the aorta is going to go down, give you like some renal arteries, pulmonary, the abdominal aorta, all the other branches to the lower extreme, chest and lower extremities, and some branches goes up, give you the brachiocephalic, okay, and give you the left common carotid artery. This is what goes to your head or to your brain, and left subclavian artery. This will be under the clavicle. Okay, this is like some branches that be like divided from the aorta. This is just posterior view, the other view. This is the aorta, right pulmonary artery, superior vena cava. Of course, this will be the inferior vena cava, right atrium will be here, and this will be the posterior interventricular sulcus, and this will be the middle cardiac vein, and this will be the posterior interventricular artery, and of course this will be the right ventricle here. This the big one. As you know, the left side is a bit larger than the right side, so this left ventricle is much larger than the right ventricle, apex of the heart. Of course, this will be the left pulmonary vein that bringing the oxygenated blood from the lung to the heart to the left atrium. This is of course the left atrium, okay, and this is the great cardiac vein, and this is the coronary sinus, okay. Of course the heart itself need blood, so these branches actually supply the muscle a little bit. So this is the aortic valve. This is called bicuspid or mitral valve. This is between the left atrium and left ventricle. Okay, this is the left ventricle right here. This is called papillary muscle that holding the valve in place. This is a tendon that hold the bicuspid valve, and this papillary muscle connected to the cardiac muscle, or part of the cardiac muscle. And this is the interventricular septum, again septum wall that separated the two ventricles here. Okay, so it's like wall between right ventricle and left ventricle. And of course the three layers of the heart: endocardium, the most inner one, and the myocardium, the muscle itself, the cardiac muscle, and the epicardium, the most outer part of the heart wall. Heart wall has three branches: endo, most inner one, the middle one, the myocardium, and the epicardium. This is just to show you the mitral valve, left atrioventricular bicuspid valve. This is actually what separated the left atrium from right atrium, so the blood go, from the left ventricle, so left atrium to left ventricle, so the blood go only in one way, doesn't go back, okay, doesn't fluctuate, because it's gonna be a big problem. The heart always go in one direction, okay. And we have the tricuspid valve. See the tricuspid valve. This is actually the separated, the go between the right atrium and the right ventricle. Has three branches, okay. And this is the aortic valve, stronger one, as you can see. It's actually had three branches as well. And this is opening for coronary artery. As you know, the coronary arteries, those arteries that supply the heart muscle itself with blood, because you know heart muscles, it still needs some blood to be able to work, as you know. And this is the left coronary artery. See those? This blood actually supply the cardiac muscle to be able to work all the time, okay. And this will be the circumflex artery, and this is actually the pulmonary valve. This is like when you took a section like this in the heart. The three layers, or the three walls of the cardiac muscle or of the heart. You have the pericardial cavity that contain pericardial serous fluid. Of course, this is a source of protection to the heart, as you know, okay. And you have the fibrous pericardium, tough to protect the heart from outside. And you have the parietal layer, the most after the fibrous, the most outer one underneath the fibrous, called parietal being the top. Visceral will be the most inner layers toward viscera, toward your internal organ, okay. And the cavity itself, the pericardium cavity in the middle. Of course, cavity coming from the cave, place where you can hide. This cave has something called serous fluid, okay. And the endocardium the layer of the muscle itself, endocardium, most inner layer, and the myocardium from the muscle itself, and you have the visceral layer of the serous, pericardium. This is actually what makes the heart wall. Okay. This just to show you the entire blood circulation. So the red color represent oxygenated blood. The blue represent the poor blood or the CO2 rich blood, carbon dioxide. So each cell, as you can see, if this is your cells, tissues, each cells need to gas exchange and to exchange nutrients and to remove the waste products. And this happens through the blood circulation. So the blue part represent the deoxygenated blood, that blood that rich in the carbon dioxide, and the red one represent the oxygenated blood. And this is the entire circle. As you know, the heart collect the oxygenated blood, send it to the lung, dump the CO2, then the blood carry the oxygen, go back to the blood again, to the cardiac muscle, through the left atrium send it to the left ventricle would send it all over the body through the aorta. And this is your tissue exchanging fluid all the time, taking the oxygen, dump the CO2, and this is a network actually that can actually, some fluid came out of those network to provide the tissue with whatever they need, and at the same time collect the waste product through the of course, this is just I think the cheap heart, and unfortunately we don't meet in the actual lab, we just have the virtual lab meeting. So this is just to show you how first you have to squeeze. When you take the heart out of the plastic bag, you have to squeeze it from the fluid first, and then you gotta decide which one is the apex and which one is the base. And you always can insert your tools inside the superior vena cava here. And of course the auricle of the right atrium, it's like ear, auricle, like you know your ear. So this is the ear of the heart, and it's attached the heart to somewhere to the internal organ, but we really don't know what the function of the auricle of the right atrium yet. Okay, and of course this big vessel here called the aorta. Okay, and this is the pulmonary trunk. This will be the left atrium, and this will be the auricle of the left atrium, and this is the atrioventricular sulcus right here, and this will be the anterior interventricular sulcus, this one right here, and this will be of course the right ventricle. This is the big one would be the left ventricle. This will be a lot of fun to do this in the lab to show you how it looks like. Now you flip it to the other side, and see, you can insert your tool inside the superior vena cava, and you can reach to the inferior vena cava. This is pulmonary trunk, this is the aorta, this is the left atrium, left ventricle, this is atrioventricular sulcus, and this is the right ventricle, and this will be the posterior interventricular sulcus. So this is actually some kind of mark where you can know, are you looking at the heart from posterior or anterior view. This will be the posterior interventricular sulcus when you look at the posterior heart. Some bone landmark that show you where actually the heart is. So first, just let's review the anatomy of the bone. This is the clavicle, as you know, and this is the jugular notch of the sternum. This is the mandiburum of the sternum, and this is the xiphoid process here, this tip here of the sternum. So this is the second intercostal space. Pulmonary area will be here in this area, and the aortic area would be in the other side, the right side. So the pulmonary area will be in the left side in the second intercostal space, and the aortic will be in the right side of the secondary intercostal space. This is a fifth intercostal space where you can find the mitral area in the left side and the tricuspid area in the right side. Now, as you know, the heart has to pump the blood all the time. I give you, I think like 1 heartbeat per second. You know, that's, and keep working since you were infant in your mother womb until you die. So what actually regulate the opening and the closing, or the contraction and relaxation for both atrium and both ventricle at the same time, will be the electricity of the heart. And the heart has its own electricity, and has this big generator here, located in the right atrium, called sinoatrial node, or SA nodes. And you have another electrical generator. You consider this as electrical generator, like the one you have as a backup in your home when the electricity like goes off, called AV node, or atrioventricular node. Okay, so both actually connected, and both actually regulate the electrical activity of the heart. Consider this as the source of the electricity, and this is branches go down to the something called atrioventricular bundle. So it's going to give you like right bundle goes to the right ventricle, and left bundle that go to the left ventricle. And it's exactly like if you're connecting like electrical bulb through like wires. This would be the wires actually that provide the muscle with the electricity to be able to contract. So it will go from the AV bundle to right bundle and left bundle, and from these left bundle you go into smaller branch giving you something called Purkinje fibers. These Purkinje fibers, consider this as the source. That's what make the muscle contract. This is the electrical wire that reach the cardiac muscle to be able to contract. So same thing from between the both atrium. So this is the generator, give electricity to left atrium and right atrium. So both can contract at the same time. Once these two atrium contract, will be pushing the blood down to the ventricle. But once it push the blood down, these atrium will be relaxed to receive the second episode of blood. But once the blood reach the ventricle, then the ventricle will be contract at the same time to distribute the blood, or to push the blood away from the heart. Okay, so this actually, the heart has this unique connection that it controls it. And this will be the EKG, or electrocardiogram. Usually the doctors using this to test the health of the electrical activity of the heart. So it has actually the entire cycle take only 1 second. You see, when the blood received by the atrium and send the blood down to the ventricle, so this actually only one cycle, that this cycle like happen in only 1 second. It has actually different segment. We call P, Q, R, S, and then the T segment. Each part represent depolarization of the atrium, and then depolarization of the ventricle when they push the blood away from the heart until the muscle relax again. The P wave, usually the normal duration is supposed to be 0.6 to 0.11 seconds, and this is actually the depolarization of the atrial fibers. PQ, or PR interval, between 0.12 to 0.20. This is actually the time for cardiac impulse from sinoatrial node through the AV nodes. QRS complex, it's less than 0.12 second, and this will be the actual depolarization of the ventricular fibers. ST segment 0.12, this is the time for ventricles to contract. And QT interval 0.32 to 0.42, this is the time from ventricular depolarization to end of ventricular repolarization. Okay, and the T wave is 0.16. This will be the repolarization of the ventricular fibers or the end of the pattern. Okay, about depolarization and repolarization. Okay, so let's say you have a syringe here that you load the medicine, like with, to give someone like injection, right? Let's say this is a syringe, right? And this is a medication. So if you empty the syringe, this is called depolarization. And now we need to load the medication again. When you reload the medication into the syringe, this is called repolarization. Okay, so consider depolarization and as you charge, or you empty, you recharge, and repolarization, you recharge. It's exactly when you go to like McDonald's, you wanna like drink soda, you drink and you refill. Okay, so when you empty the cup, you drink it already, this will be depolarization, empty, then you need to refill, you need to repolarize. So number 2 will be the atrial depolarization complete. When you complete the entire depolarization, when you complete the contraction of the both atrium, this will be the P wave. Once the P wave is gone or the contraction is finished, these atrium need to relax to receive the next load of blood. Okay, and so the QR would be the ventricular depolarization begins of the ventricular depolarization at the apex, usually start at the apex and go backward, and progress superiorly as the atria repolarize. So while these guys refill, reload with blood, relax to receive blood, these guys contract to push the blood away from the ventricles. Number 4 will be the RS. This will be the ventricular depolarization complete. So when actually the two ventricles contract 100% and empty the blood, push the blood away. Number 5 will be the ventricular repolarization begin at apex and progress superiorly. So since it's empty already, so these guys here, ventricle, need to relax to receive the next episode of blood to recharge itself here. And number 6 will be the ventricular repolarization complete, and the heart is ready for the next cycle. This will be the complete of ST, of the T here. Okay, this is just to show you again the electricity of the heart. Unique feature for the heart, you have the SA node. This is the first generator. AV node or atrioventricular, this is second generators, and there is branches or wires between them. Okay, of course this will be the interatrial septum. This is the wall between the both atrium, and these branches or wire between the two nodes or the two generators, we call them junctional fiber. It's junction between the first generator and the second generator right here. Okay, and of course you have the atrioventricular bundle, which is going to give you right branch and left branch, all these wires, right? Consider these wires, and it's going to give you the Purkinje to the muscle, to the ventricular cardiac muscle here. Okay, so this will be the Purkinje fibers, and this will be the interventricular septum or wall, and this is the intraatrial wall too, between the two atrium. Very beautiful system. This guy will send charges or electrical signal. Both atrium will contract. then the blood will go down to the ventricle. While the blood's going down to the ventricle, these guys are going to relax again or recharge again for the next episode. These guys here, once they receive the blood, is going to contract to push the blood away and then relax. Again, this is the ECG, the PQRST complete cycle of the ECG. And this is actually the exercise we're supposed to do, like on the this is of course computer exercise. This is show you where actually to connect the wires to perform the ECG or the electrical activities in the entire body. So you connect the white lead to the right forearm and the red lead to the left ankle or left leg, and the black lead will be connected to the right leg. And this is actually how you connect the BIOPAC exercise for the student BIOPAC exercise to perform the electrocardiogram. This again just to show you the P wave, and I think we explained this earlier. P wave 0.6 to 0.11, and this is amplitude less than 0.25 millivolts. PR interval like 0.12 to 0.20, PR segment 0.8, and QRS complex is less than 0.12. Amplitude supposed to be 0.8 to 1.2. You can find all these values actually at the BIOPAC exercise at the ECG value, and that's about it. This will be the BIOPAC exercise. Of course, it's a lot of fun to do this at the lab, but unfortunately we don't have access to this right now. I just want to give you idea about it. That will do it for today. Thank you.